Hi everyone, it's Lucy from My Crazy Craft Life, and today I'm here with the October 2020 Flavor of the Month card kit reveal from Scrapping for Less. Today I'm going to be making these 4 cards that are part of the sketches. They do have a couple different options, either the banana split level or the double dip level, which I will get into and give you all the ingredients from as I'm kind of making these cards. I follow along with the cards, with the sketches, so it's pretty easy to follow along to. For the first card I am going to be making, I'm using sketch number 1, and this is collection number 3. It's Merry Special Delivery, and with this collection you are going to receive the Merry Special Delivery paper and stamp set by Scrapping for Less. You are going to receive tags by Desiree, and you are also going to receive enamel dots by Gina Marie Designs. Now, as part of the banana split level, you receive tag dies by Scrapping for Less. It's a whole set of tags, and I cut one out of some of the white accent opaque 100-pound cardstock that we have as part of our kit. But if you do not get the banana split level, you do receive some tags from Desiree as part of this collection, so that you can still use these stamps on those tags if you wanted to. So that's kind of fun and cool with that. So I stamped one of the images onto the tag, and then, like I said, I am just going to follow along. And I used the largest tag from the banana split level that includes the tag dies, and then for the card, it is an A2 size card, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I cut a base out that was 4 inches by 5 1/4. The strip that's going to go down the center is 2 inches by 5 1/4, and that is pretty much going to finish up that card. Now for this card, I did end up using the gray craft cardstock as my card base, and as part of this this kit, you are going to receive electric red, snow cone, night shift blue, black licorice, gumdrop green, and then the gray craft, along with 2 sheets of the accent opaque, the white 100-pound cardstock, and 4 A2 size envelopes. So that is going to be part of every kit no matter what. Now, you see me using some twine there. That is also part of the banana split level. So you receive, as part of the banana split level, the kind of extra little package that you get there, the set of tag dies, Christmas Elements stencil by Scrapping for Less, bundle of twine by Casper, and then a sequence by Scrapping for Less. And I am using these little glue dots to pop up just a little bit this tag on there. These are permanent glue dots, so this isn't something that could be removed later. But I just think it's a very simple card. I think it could be used for a more masculine card if you want to give something to someone who wants a more masculine card that you want one for. So my second card I am going to make is using sketch number 2, and for this collection, it is collection number 4, called Believe. And I will tell you, I had the hardest time, and I don't know, my mind was just not working the way that I needed to work to cut these down and to figure out how to get the angles correct, and they still weren't 100% correct, but they worked well enough. So for this, you're going to need a piece that's 2 5/8 inches by 4 1/8 inch. And the longest side is going to be the 2 5/8, and then the shorter side is going to be 1 5/16. So what I ended up doing was putting and like I said, I played with this a lot to try to figure out how to get this to make sense in my head, but it just was not coming to me. So what I did was I put the largest side down onto my trimmer, and then I put the bottom corner of the paper to the smaller side on the, or the smaller measurement on the cutting board. So like for the 2 5/8 one, I put the side that was 2 5/8 inches, the very corner, in the corner of the trimmer, and then I put the other corner, the opposite corner, into the 1 5/16 marking on the trimmer, and then I cut it that way, and that gave me the angles. So like I said, I did finally figure it out, but like I said, it did take me a minute to figure out how to get that. Then I was trying to figure out what the measurement was to put in that center piece, and then what I ended up doing was just cutting it at the size that I needed, and then just marking off with a pencil the edges, and then just cutting it from edge to edge. So on both sides I marked off the paper with a pencil, and then just cut from pencil mark to pencil mark, and that's how I got that center piece. Now I ended up cutting the bottom piece, which is 2 5/16 inches by 4 1/8 inches, and that is what I cut a little wonky. It wasn't quite straight, so that's what ended up making the rest of this a little bit wonky. So when I ended up putting it together, the piece that was in the center was a little bit off, but like I said, it was going to work well enough, and then once I put the embellishments on there, you really can't notice it without me really telling you about it. So I went back and forth on what to use. The other thing that you do want to make sure is that you cut it in the right direction so that the pattern that you want is going to stick out in the right way. So you see that first piece, I did not do that. I put it on the back thinking, oh, I want to cut it on the back side of it so in case you don't see any pencil marks, but you really can't. You need to do it on the front or on the side that you're going to be cutting, or otherwise realize that you have to cut it at a different way. So then I ended up cutting that one down, and I thought about putting pieces, thin pieces on there to kind of cover up where it was a little bit off, but like I said, I decided against that. And then once I put some of the ephemera on there, like I said, you can't really see too much of it anyway. I do end up popping up the ephemera with some foam tape just to give it a little bit of dimension, and then here I am just cutting out a piece that is going on the inside because I do use the black licorice for my card base, so I wanted to make sure I had something that was there so that I could write my, or put my sentiment on, and then write my note to whomever I will be giving this card to. So after I pop that off, and to finish off this card, I do end up just popping on some of the enamel dots, but I did grab those from a different kit. For the sentiment, I am going to use the Believe stamp that was part of this. I am going to use my Misty just to hold that down because some of the parts are a solid stamp, and I want to make sure, especially because I am using the green, moss green Your Next stamp ink cube, that it is a solid image and that it's stamped well. So I wanted to make sure that that happened there, which is why I used my Misty. So once I get through with this, I am going to pop that onto the into the inside of the card, and then that will be my place to be able to add a note. Now for the next card, I am using sketch number 3, and I am using collection number 2, and collection number 2 is called Starry Night Wishes. Starry Night Wishes paper and Starry Night Wishes stamp from Scrapping for Less and Tawny Owl Papery. Now I did use my circles to cut out a white circle already that I'm going to be stamping the snowman image on. I am using the Night Shift blue for the card base, and then I'm just going to pick which ones that I want for my background, which ones I want for the backing or the layering portion of the circle stamp, and those are the ones I chose. I also chose one to add a sentiment to that I'm going to use. And for the sentiment one, even though I picked one of the pattern papers, I picked a mostly white one so that I could stamp that image on, or stamp that sentiment on, and not have any issues with it. Now I do some real simple coloring with this. I do put the Misty, or I do use the Misty, and I put the stamp in the Misty, which was what I was trying to say, just so I can make sure I get a nice solid image when I was stamping this. At first I was going to leave it gray. Now I did not use black, I used gray. Since the colors are blue and gray that are in the pattern papers, I thought the gray would be nice. I used Hero Arts Soft Granite, that's the color that I used there, and then a little later I end up using charcoal from Hero Arts as well. Now, like I said, I do end up coloring this really simply. I did not leave the coloring in here because, one, it wasn't interesting enough to want to watch, and two, like I said, it's just very minimal. The other thing that I did was I used the charcoal, and I went back and forth with the sentiment I wanted to put on here, and then I ended up going and using the Peace on Earth one, because I decided I wanted to use some embossing powder, and I was going to use the silver embossing powder. Now I did end up having to make this twice, and this is where I used the granite from Hero Arts ink for the sentiment, and I put the embossing powder on there. I remembered to use my embossing tool, and I didn't spill the embossing powder, which was all going really well, and then I ended up burning the paper. So you do want to make sure that you have a nice hot gun when you start this, so you don't have to leave it on there too long. But the other thing is you do want to make sure that you don't burn the paper. So hot, yes. Too long, no. And do try to remember to use your embossing tool, because I did end up remembering it both times, which I was extremely proud of myself, because that is the one thing I almost always forget. So when you have a nice hot gun, it will melt very, very quickly, and then you won't have that problem. So I just cornered off, following this sketch, 3/4 of an inch on each side of the pattern paper that I was going to use for my layering piece, and then on the card base itself, and then I just cut that off. And I just used my eraser real quick to get any of the pencil marking that may have been on there. Now I do end up taking a little bit more off, because I thought at first that I would have to do it a little bit less, but you really have to do it 3/4 of an inch for both the pattern paper and the card base itself. If you do like a 1/2 an inch on the pattern paper, it doesn't work out correctly. So once I adhere that to the card base itself, I then color the image, and then when I flip over here, I am just going to start piecing my card together. So that strip is 1/4 of an inch by 4 inches, and the large circle is 3.5 inch circle. The smaller circle that the image is on is 2 3/4, and then 1 3/4 circle is what the sentiment is on that I heat embossed, and that is going to finish up all of the pieces of the card and all of the layering pieces of it. Then what I do is I take I had my Wink of Stella and I had my Spectrum Noir Sparkle pen, and I went back and forth as to which one I was going to use, because the Spectrum Noir Sparkle pen, I feel is clear with the sparkle in it, whereas the Wink of Stella I think is a little more silvery. So then I end up finding a metallic silver pen, and I did color the stars. So I decided to use the Wink of Stella on the stars, because like I said, I do feel that that's a little bit more silvery and just gives it a little different look for the stars that I thought worked out better. Then I grabbed the sequin pack that was part of this collection, and I am going to add sequins onto little different areas of it. I love this pen. It's by Marvy, or it's not a pen, it's like a sticky tool. I think it's a jewel tool is what it's called, but for sequins and things like that, it works great to pick them up, to be able to stick them on your paper without having to try to fiddle with them. And then again, because this paper, or the card base that I used is Night Shift Blue. I wanted to add a piece inside. I am going to stamp a sentiment on there and then just adhere that onto the inside, and that will be where I can write my note to who I'm giving it to, and that will finish up this third card. Now for my final card, which I used collection number 1, which includes Classic Cardinals paper by Scrapping for Less, Classic Cardinals stamp by Scrapping for Less, ribbon by Desiree, and then enamel dots by Gina Marie Designs. And I am again just following this card sketch that is here. And I had a hard time figuring out the papers that I wanted to use for this one. I kind of went back and forth a lot, and then I changed my mind. But for this card, so the dimensions that I ended up using were for the back panel. I used, this is another A2 size card, so it's 4.5 by 5 1/4, or I'm sorry, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and the panel I cut out to 4 inches by 5 1/4. The long strip that is going to go the next layer up is the 5 1/4, and it is 2.5 inches. The little rectangle that is part of this is 4 inches by 2 3/4. I stamp the image onto a circle that is 2 1/4, and then I just cut off from some scrap pieces for the banner. Now, once I stamped the image onto the circle, I did color it again. There was no fancy coloring here, just very, very simple. But some of the scrap paper I used for the banners that I'm going to do there. Now, for this one, I used, again, the gray craft for my card base, and I just start to layer this one up. And at the end of this, I just grab some of the enamel dots and stick a couple on there. So again, these are great cards. They're very simple cards to make. With the kit, you can get a ton of cards out of this collection, especially for all of your Christmas cards that are pretty quick, pretty easy, pretty simple cards. Or, of course, you can make them as extravagant as you want. That's what's great about card making and crafting in general, because it's just all what your mind can imagine, and what you can pull yourself to do from what you have on hand. But I love these kits for that reason, because they just give you so many different options. So do make sure that you head over to Scrapping for Less, check out the banana split level as well as the double dip. I popped up that image of the cardinals just a little bit with some foam squares, and like I said, that will finish off this card. So again, thank you for joining me. I hope everybody has a great day. Make sure you check out everybody on the blog hop. I know Desiree is after me. So again, take care, stay healthy. See you next time.